A lot of people don't know what to do with each artifact item, so this guide will cover a quick list of some good users of each and every one of these items. At the very end of the video, I'll teach you how to get a little more creative than just knowing who the base users are, so stick around for that if you want to get a little bit more advanced. But let's just get right into it. Blighting Jewel is great on Malzahar and Karma. Blighting Jewel gives ability power and a little bit of mana regen, but the most important effect is that whenever you deal magic damage, it reduces the target's magic resistance by 4. Then, once their magic resist is 0, you give your holder 5 mana instead. So all that means is if you have someone who has a lot of instances of magic damage, they're going to be really good with Blighting Jewel. That's going to be Malzahar. He's going to be the best user of this item, and then Karma's going to be pretty good after that. Malzahar has a nice little comp you could play with him with Blighting Jewel that can only be played with Blighting Jewel, where you get him, you use your power up, and you go for a Shadow Clone. The reason why Shadow Clone is so good is because you now have 2 instances of Blighting Jewel going off, which makes Malzahar hit everyone, reduces everyone to 0 mana, and then he just gets completely big. Item builds you could try with this, in order to finish him off, is going to be pairing it with a Morello and then a Hextech Gunblade. A lot of people build Void Staff when they play this build, because they want to reduce magic resist even more, but I don't really think it's necessary because they get to 0 so quickly anyways. Next build up we have is Dawncore. Dawncore is very good if a user has low mana pool already and you want them to cast a lot. The reason why is because this reduces the holder's max mana by 10, and subsequent casts reduce max mana by 10% down to a minimum of 15 mana. So great users of this is going to be Katarina, Kog'Maw, Yuumi, and Syndra. By the way, I want to mention that everything we're covering in this video is going to be pretty timeless. The knowledge you gain from this is going to be relevant the entire set, whether a comp is in or out of the meta. So that's why I'm including stuff like Kog'Maw with the Fairy Tail power-up specifically, because it's a nice little interaction, even though Kog'Maw in this current day is not that viable yet. But all these users use this really well. Syndra I think is my favorite, especially with Rising Chaos. She could just be a 1-cost carry that you hold the entire game with Star Guardians. And with Dawncore, I'd say Syndra, Katarina are both very hard forceable. Next one up we have is Death's Defiance. Death's Defiance is pretty good on just like any attack fighter. It's never the best artifact item you're ever going to get, but it's always going to be pretty good on certain people. So you're not going to be hard forcing any comp with this from the start of the game, but something you might consider is if you take Artifact Anvil on stage 3 or 4, and you're playing melee carry, it's going to work on just about any of them, so you don't need to do any scientific research for this. Next one up we have is Deathfire Grasp. This is one of my favorites because it works really well with sorcerers, because Deathfire Grasp shoots a blast at the current target for 40% of their max health as magic damage, and then it repeats this every 13 seconds. So if you have a very fast burst comp that's magic damage based, this is going to be extremely good for you. So Karma, no brainer. Ari, no brainer. They're both sorcerers, but Yuumi can also make this work, mainly just because she's a good AP item holder. So you know how Death's Defiance, you could use it on any attack fighter. Deathfire Grasp, you could pretty much use it on any backline mage, but these are going to be the best. Next one up we have is Fishbones. So Fishbones doubles the holder's attack range, but also makes them attack random targets. So honestly, a lot of users can use this. Any ranged single target carry uses this really well. So Kai'Sa, Jhin, Gangplank, Smolder, and Ashe are all really good candidates for this. They all have single target abilities, or they have so much damage that they can snipe backlines really easily, such as in the case for Kai'Sa and Ashe. But essentially, if your unit does single target damage, it's going to work pretty well with Fishbones. It works best with attack damage carries because this gives both attack speed and attack damage, but you could use it on magic damage dealers as well. Some people have cheesed Fishbones with some magic damage dealers in the past, but typically it's going to be best on ranged single target attack damage users. Next one up we have is Flickerblade. Flickerblade might be getting nerfed sometime during the set, but right now it's extremely strong because you just get so much attack speed from it. It's the old Rage Blade, and so many users love having that. It's just one of the core items of TFT. So if your unit attacks, Flickerblade's going to be good. But some key users of that is going to be Ashe, Gangplank, Kayle, Kog'Maw, and Twisted Fate, but there are many more that can be added to this list. Same thing goes for the next one up, because we have Gambler's Blade. Gambler's Blade gives you gold on every single attack that you have. I recommend only using Gambler's Blade if you have a Rage Blade at the very start of the game to combine with the Gambler's Blade, because that's the way to get the most amount of gold from this item. It's balanced around that interaction. So unless you have that going for you, I would avoid taking Gambler's Blade. But if you do get the Rage Blade with it, I recommend going for high fast attack speed champions, such as the same exact list that we just went through with Flickerblades, and going with stuff like Ashe, Kog'Maw, Kayle, Twisted Fate, and pretty much just any user that has Rage Blade. Next one up we have is Gold Collector, which is another one of those gold collecting artifacts, similar to the Gambler's Blade, but Collector is essentially a crit complementary item. So if you have any user with Infinity Edge, it's going to be best with that type of user, because this item gives a lot of crit and it also has a nice little execute effect. So great users for this is going to be Varus, Caitlyn, Volibear, and Samira. But if you're building Infinity Edge on someone, build the Gold Collector on them. It's kind of like the opposite types of users of the Gambler's Blade and the Flickerblades. So most attack damage based champions are either going to be attack speed focus or spell focus. So if you're spell focus, you want to go the Infinity Edge style builds, but if you're attack speed focus, you do stuff like Rage Blade and Kraken Slayer. So Gold Collector works really well with all the IE users, and then combining it with Gold Collector instead of a different crit item like Last Whisper or Guard Breaker, it's a great, nice little replacement for that. Next one up we have is Horizon Focus. This is a bit of a weird one because it focuses on stunning units. So if your unit doesn't stun, it's horrible on them, it's completely useless. But if you do have a stunning effect on your hero, it's going to strike units for 30% of their max health as magic damage. So it can be a very, very good item. Typically this item does like a little bit above average in most sets. I'm not saying it's true all the time, but that's what I've seen through the entire history of TFT. But the bad part about this item is that it's either useless or slightly above average. So it's a bit of a risky item to take. So the best users of this is going to be 4 Mentor Kabuko. He ends up stunning a lot of people when he has 4 Mentor activated, but if he doesn't, then it's not that great. Jarvan is very good with it. He's the most obvious user of this. Yone, decent with this, and then Malphite Hero Augment can use this as well. But one funny thing you could do is use Demolitionist, and then Horizon Focus gets a lot of value because Demolitionist stuns people, and so does the Icy Touch one. Next one up we have is Hullcrusher. Hullcrusher is just a generic tank or bruiser-ish item. It's never going to be the best item on any champion by any means. It just gives a bunch of stats. It gives health, it gives armor, it gives magic resistance, and if the unit is positioned in an isolated way, you gain a lot of health, some attack damage, and ability power. So it's most usable on tanks, but it's best on bruiser-ish characters. For example, Garen Hero Augment uses it pretty well. Braum is a great user of this too because he's kind of that weird hybrid, but any attack tank or sometimes even just any tank in general can make decent use of this. Again, not a best in slot item, but still very good value for a lot of your tanks. Next one up we have is Indomitable. This one's just another generic tank item. Nothing really too special about it. Not best in slot on anyone, but it can be pretty decent. One little thing you do need to keep in mind when stat checking Indomitable though is that it often drops in a 7 Crystal Gambit cash out. So sometimes the overall stats on it look much better than it normally actually performs because a lot of the stats attributed to the Indomitable are going to be from Crystal Gambit. So I'm going to show you a neat little trick we could check out here. So if we look at the Indomitable on teamfight.lol and then type in 7 Crystal Gambit, we could actually exclude this and see that it goes from a 2.49 all the way to a 4.54. So without Crystal Gambit, it's a very average performing artifact item, but alone it's looking like a 4.03. So you think it's like, oh, it's pretty good, right? Nope, wrong. It's just completely average. The only thing that's happening is that it's getting boosted by all the Crystal Gambit players, but that doesn't mean it's bad. Literally, you could use it on any single frontliner, so it's just overall very decent. Don't be afraid to take this. Next one up we have is Infinity Force. This one's just generic stats for a bunch of users. Any melee carry uses this the best. You can technically use it on backline carries as well, or any carry period, but it's best on melee carries. The reason why is because it gives every single stat in the game except for critical strike and mana regen. So essentially you're just getting health, resistances, attack speed, attack damage, and ability power. So naturally the units that can make the most of those are going to be melee units. So Volibear, Lee Sin, Braum, Yone going to be great targets for that. So if you're ever playing maybe like the Luchador comp with edgelords, going to be a pretty good item for them, and you could put it on whoever you want. Next one up we have is Innervating Locket. This one's a very special item because it's very good on tanks that just go infinite. So all the super tanks out there that use their ability to go infinite, this one's going to be the item for you because the holder gains 2% of their total mana whenever they're hit by an attack, and each cast restores 20% of the holder's max health over 3 seconds. So honestly, there are a lot of users for this. but it's going to be best on Dr. Mundo, but any tank that can go kind of infinite or anyone that uses Gargoyle Stoneplate is going to be really, really good, because if they're taking damage, they're going to be gaining mana and they're going to be casting, and then they're going to be healing right back up. Next build up we have is going to be Lich Bane. Lich Bane says that whenever you cast an ability, your next auto attack becomes enhanced, and this damage increase is based on stage. While this may sound a bit more complicated than it may seem, pretty much anyone who used Dawncore pretty decently or anyone who casts really, really quickly, they're going to be making pretty good use of Lich Bane as well, but it's a bit more focused. So Dawncore had a lot more users, but I'd say for Lich Bane, you focus it more on the units that rely on casting a lot more. So that's going to be Kog'Maw, Syndra, and Gwen as some potential users, but honestly, Prodigies can use this, and anyone who casts very often can use this as well. Next one up we have is Lightshield. Lightshield is going to be a great item if you have a lot of different tanks that can make really good use of the shield. So the reason why I say this is because every 3 seconds you shield the lowest percent health ally for a percent of your combined armor and magic resistance. And then when you die, you grant the shield to all allies. So this is going to be great in comps that rely on bastions, because the bastion trait gives a lot of armor and magic resistance. So not only do you get a lot of value from the shield, but you also give it to other bastions. So whenever you have a shield, what's the best way to enhance the shield? Well, it's to have more resistances. So any bastion is going to be great with Lightshield Crest, but if you don't have that, like, you don't have to play this with bastions. It could be used as a generic tanking artifact. So if you have a Stoneplate user up front that you're solo tanking, getting a lot of resistances, they can definitely make use of Light Crest as well. Next one up we have is Luden's Tempest. This item allows your units to overkill onto other units. So if your unit does a lot of single target damage or high single target damage, it's going to be pretty good on that champion. So I think the unit this makes the most sense on is going to be something like Jhin and Ahri, because they both do a lot of single target damage and they already have built-in overkill effects. Ahri has it in her ability and Jhin has it with Artistic KO. But some other good targets to use for this are going to be Kalista and Caitlyn. Essentially, if you just do a crap ton of damage, they're going to make use of Luden's Tempest so that none of the damage goes to waste. Lastly, someone like Darius, who again does a lot of overkill, definitely is a great user of Luden's Tempest because he also weakens the next unit he's about to hit, so maybe he gets multiple resets in a row solely due to Luden's Tempest. Next one up we have is Manazane. Pretty much anyone that uses Spear Shojin, blue buff, anything like that to gain mana is going to be a great user for Manazane. So things like Karma, Caitlyn, Rising Chaos Syndra, those are very obvious candidates for great users for Manazane. But I want to do a special shout out to Yuumi because she normally doesn't build Shojin, she does not build blue buff because she gets all her mana regen from Prodigies. So you might wonder, why is Manazane still good on her? Well, if a unit just needs enough damage to one-tap everything, and doing that in a couple of casts thanks to Manazane helps her achieve that, well, Manazane's gonna be good because it just gives her the exact amount of damage to finish off like 90% of fights. So that's why Manazane is really good on Yuumi. It's not because she needs the mana regen, it's just because when she casts so many times, the game ends. So that's why Manazane is incredibly good on her. But another special shout out is going to be going to Gwen because she typically, again, does not build any mana items, but she's able to cast so quickly, and using the Manazane allows her to activate its effect very, very quickly, because the way Manazane works is that after casting the first time in combat, gain 120 mana over 5 seconds. So she's just going to be able to get multiple AoE casts off and often dominate the fights in a very similar manner to Yuumi. So fantastic item. If you need mana, well, it's in the name, so just go for a Manazane. Next one up we have is Mittens. Mittens is really good on any melee carry that deals a lot of auto attacks because it gives 60% attack speed and 25 durability, and it also shrinks the holder, granting them increased movement speed and immunity to chill. Chill is an effect that reduces attack speed. So any melee carry can use this. Worst case scenario, you could put it on a backline attack speed based champion, but that's not going to be optimal. But some units that come to the top of my mind are going to be Volibear, Gangplank, and All Out Cassante. Because if you're in the front line, the durability is going to help out a ton. And if you're attacking, obviously the attack speed is going to be a good boost as well. Next one up we have is Mogul's Mail. So Mogul's Mail is the third gold generating artifact item, and the way to use this best is to only pick this if you have an upgraded 2-star frontline during stage 2. That's the only time you want to take Mogul's Mail. It's the best gold generating item in general. I think like it's better than Gambler's Blade and much better than Collector, but it has the one caveat that it is not good in the late game, and it is only really good in the early game because it really just snowballs the entirety of the game. You often get 2 gold per round every single turn, and you also get a pretty sweet item. So what ends up happening is that you solo frontline your unit, give them Mogul's Mail, give them whatever tank item you can. If it resembles any bit of a tank item, you put it on them because you want this to guarantee trigger, because you need to get to 35 instances of damage to activate the gold generating effect, and just have them stay alive as long as possible. So any 2-star tank can do this. Sometimes a 1-star 3 cost can do this during stage 2. But essentially, if the unit lives a long time, drop a Mogul's Mail on them, and then you're going to be getting infinite gold for the rest of that game. So Mundo, I think, is the best user of this by far, but literally any 2-star frontliner can trigger this to great effect. Next one up we have is Prowler's Claw. This one is a very, very annoying artifact to deal with on the receiving end, but when using it, you get a lot of cool kills with it. Because after you kill a unit, you shed negative effects and then you jump to the farthest target within 4 hexes. So this could just jump to the back line in a lot of cases. Then your next attacks critically strike and gain bonus crit chance. So there's a lot of times where you cheese fights solely based on the fact that you have this item, and it's really good on units with a bunch of reset effects. So Darius obviously has a great reset effect. He can just jump to the back line sometimes and just rock them. Volibear also has a reset effect, so if you combine this with Volibear's jump that he normally does, so he kind of gets 2 jumps, and if you have Serious Slam that gives like 3 different instances of bonus damage, that could be really good for getting him to just go kill after kill after kill. And then lastly, Cassante just does so much damage when he's all out that Prowler's Claw is a great item for him because he could just jump to backline after killing one of the tanks. But if you have an assassin that doesn't jump already, it's going to be pretty good on that unit. This definitely is one of those artifacts that makes it kind of hard forceable, especially for something like Darius or all-out Cassante when he is in the meta. Next one up is going to be Rapid Fire Cannon. So Rapid Fire Cannon gives a lot of range to your unit. So any melee unit that likes auto-attacking is going to make great use of this. Gangplank is probably going to be the best one because he really likes the power-up stretchy arms, and Rapid Fire Cannon gives you stretchy arms without needing to use 10 power-up refreshes. So it's incredibly good on him, probably the best user by far, but if Gangplank is not in the meta, then any melee carry can use this pretty decently. Cassante can use it, Viego can use it, and then Gwen is incredibly good too. The reason why Gwen is good is because her attacks are scissors, right? So she scissors people on the board, and if you increase her range, the scissor range becomes bigger too. So Sniper's Focus and Rapid Fire Cannon are both really, really good on her because she ends up hitting a ton of units for free. Right now, this artifact isn't in the best spot, I would say. Like, there isn't any super duper OP case, but if you need range, because some champions just go absolutely insane if they have +1 range, such as Gangplank and Gwen, go ahead and use this. But you could, worst case scenario, always use this on any generic backline carry because it also does give a lot of attack speed. Next one up we have is Seeker's Armguard. This is probably one of the weirdest artifacts, I would say, because you need to be an ability power unit and you need to be in the front line to make use of the resistances that you get, because this item gives ability power, armor, and magic resistance, and then every takedown you get gives you more magic resistance, ability power, and armor, and then they get even more if they score a kill. So since it gives resistances, you might think like, oh, I want a tank for it, but tanks often don't target that many units, and then if they do, they're not getting the kill, so they're not getting the most value from this. And then you're like, oh, I probably wanted on an ability power carry, and that would make a lot of sense, right? But the issue is that there are not that many melee ability power carries. The only ones that are in this set are pretty much Katarina, Akali, Gwen, and Viego. Apart from that, there aren't really too many of them. So the issue arises is when a lot of these carries rely heavily on killing their first unit and snowballing the game. And unfortunately, right now, Seeker's Armguard doesn't help you do that because the benefit is in the longer parts of the fight. So oftentimes, something like a Katarina could just be stuck on a tank even though they do get empowered by an artifact item such as Seeker's Armguard. So you'd much rather have stuff like Dawncore that we saw before. Right now, I would only take this in like a worst case scenario, but oddly enough, it could also be used on certain backline units that hit a lot of units and also get a lot of kills. Stuff like Yuumi and Kale are going to be prime examples of that. But this one's kind of a weird one. I don't take it that much, but you are welcome to, and maybe they buff it in the future, in which case everyone's going to take it. Next one up is the complete opposite. This one is completely bonkers broken, Silvermere Dawn. If you ever get this, just hard force Jace. He averages, I think, like 1.5 placements better when he has this item. So something completely bonkers is going on there. But pretty much if you're a melee unit that does not rely on attack speed and also likes casting their ability, they're going to be making pretty decent use of Silvermere Dawn. So Jace and Darius are the easy examples that come to mind. Braum could be a user of this. And then something like Vi, if you have her hero augment, can also use this as well. Next one up we have is Sniper's Focus. So we talked about this before with the +1 range. So if you like range, then this is just another one of those artifacts that accomplishes that. So Gwen, Kayle, Gangplank, Volibear, Varus, all going to be pretty good users of this. Varus is good because Sniper's Focus works a little bit differently than Rapid Fire Cannon because it increases the damage your unit deals the further away they are from your users. So Varus attacks a backline very often, so that's why Sniper's Focus is pretty good on him. Next one up we have is Spectral Cutlass. Spectral Cutlass makes you jump to the enemy side of the board on a mirrored hex, so pretty much just the opposite of wherever you start. After 8 seconds, the holder, it returns to your first location. So this one's really good at cheesing opponents. You have to position every single round, unfortunately, but if you do, you get a huge reward because this item gives attack damage, it gives armor, it gives magic resistance, and it gives critical strike chance. So any melee user that does a lot of damage, single target especially, is going to do really well with Spectral Cutlass because you just jump to the backline and kill their backliner immediately. So Darius, Volibear, Jace, very obvious candidates for that, but literally any melee attack damage carry can use this. So stuff like Vi Hero Augment, Lee Sin if he's Executioner, or just like, again, just any melee carry is going to make great use of this. Next one up we have is Statikk Shiv. So Statikk Shiv is going to be for auto attacking, magic damage dealing champions. So Ziggs, Kog'Maw, Kayle, and Twisted Fate are all going to be some of the better users of this item because every third auto attack you deal a bunch of your ability power. So if you're a magic damage dealer that builds Rage Blade, it's gonna be good for you. There are really only just these 4. I'm trying to think of some other ones out there, but if you know of any that I missed, let me know down in the comments below. But this one's a pretty fun item to watch, and it used to be an old item from something else. So next one up we have is Suspicious Trenchcoat. This one is good if you have a lot of secondary effects on your unit. So K'Sante uses this pretty decently because you can cheese his little revive thing because you get 3 stupid copies of K'Sante out there. But apart from that, if you ever have like a really strong melee unit, just put Suspicious Trenchcoat on them. It could be a tank, it could be a melee bruiser unit, doesn't really matter too much, but as long as they're upgraded and they're melee, it can be pretty good. One weird interaction I want to talk about is Caitlyn sometimes uses this with Protector's Vow, where you get Shadow Clone on Caitlyn with this item and the Protector's Vow, put both of them in the front line, she splits into 6 total copies, and then she shoots her bullets and everyone dies. It's kind of funny to watch. In terms of the stats, because I'm sure you guys are curious on whether it's actually good or not, it's not that great, and a lot of people have tried it already. There definitely is like a pretty decent sample size built up already, but if you look at Caitlyn and you look up Suspicious Trenchcoat, you see that like it does improve it a little bit, but it doesn't really change her average placements that much. Like if you just use any other build or any other artifact item, she'd do just as well. So it's not like some OP that you must play interaction that helps you auto win, but it is kind of funny to try out. Next one up we have is Talisman of Ascension. Unfortunately for this one, there's only one real user of this. That's going to be Dr. Mundo. Just play 6 Juggernaut with him and have him live forever because that's what he does. You don't even have to have him live forever. He'll do it on his own, but just put some other tank items on him and then he'll ascend and win you a lot of fights. One thing to note about this item though is that it's really only good in the early game because people don't have enough damage to kind of burst down Mundo. As the game goes later and later, people will be able to finish him off, so you really only care about this item during stage 2 to stage 4. After that, it does fall off a lot. So if you get an artifact anvil, maybe in stage 4, do not take Talisman of Ascension, even if you have Mundo set up already. Next build up we have is Titanic Hydra. This one deals damage based off of your maximum health. The best users of this is going to be some heavyweight melee damage dealers because heavyweight gives a lot of health. So the best users of this is going to be Garen, Hero Augment, Jace, and Volibear. Are there better artifacts for these units? Yes, there are, but it is usable. So if you see it in your shop and there's nothing better to take, then you just have to take this one. Next one up we have is Trickster's Glass. This one's a little weird. If you use Shadow Clone, Tricksters is going to be good. So any unit that uses Shadow Clone, just pop this one as well. So normally when you take Shadow Clone, you like it because you have a secondary effect on your unit that you take advantage of. For example, Cassante is really good because he gets to make use of his double life. So you just get a free tank whenever you have a Trickster's Glass on him. But other units with AoE stun, such as Jarvan, also make pretty good use of this item. So Jarvan, Braum, Cassante, Zyra, Gnar, all decent with this. Next up, we have Unending Despair. So this one is just a tank augment, but it relies a lot on shields. There aren't many shielding champions in this game, and oddly enough, in just generic protectors, it does not give enough value to be that useful right now. So I think this item actually needs a buff. Hopefully they do this later on. But Rammus also makes very good use of this item. Leona's pretty good, and Nico is. Essentially, if you're a protector, you can use this, but if you also just read any champion ability, and if it says the word shield on it, you're going to be good to go. Not the best in slot by any means, but if you need a generic tank item that is specific only to shielding champions, then this is going to be the one for you. That's why I prefer the other tank artifacts, because they're much more flexible and they don't force you into a particular build. Next one up we have is Wit's End. Wit's End is another auto attack magic based item, but it also gives a bunch of healing, so it's a bit weird. It's definitely a little different from Statikk Shiv, but it does share some users. But Twisted Fate probably going to be the best one by far, and then Kog'Maw definitely could use this in the future. Last one up we have is Zhonya's Paradox. This one is essentially just Edge and Knight, but for ability power champions, so Katarina is going to be the best champion to use this by far. Gwen going to be a close second, because they both build Edge and Knight, and they're both needing ability power. So one other tech you could use with this is just use it on any backline carry that relies on time a lot. So if we compare Yuumi with something like Karma, both of them can use this item. Like, it definitely does have its use. But if we compare Karma and Yuumi, Karma, when she is getting attacked and she starts her cast, she throws out her ability and then you just wait until it resolves, right? But with Yuumi, when she casts, she does a very long animation where she could die in it. So that's where Zhonya's Paradox helps a ton, because when she is taking a lot of damage from random bullcrap in the fight, she's not going to just die randomly and not finish her cast thanks to Zhonya's Paradox. That's why she could kind of use this item, even though obviously it's going to be best on stuff like Katarina and Gwen. But any melee magic damage user that uses Edge of Night going to be the most preferred user for this artifact, but Yuumi definitely can work as well. So for example, Viego definitely can make use of Zhonya's Paradox. But now let's get into the bonus method on finding many different users of artifact items. So that's going to be reliant on data. And you can find some really wacky interactions when you use this. So go to teamfight.lol, go to items, and then go to artifacts, and then you could see a quick view of a lot of the different users for these items. So for example, Dawncore, you could see like, oh, Yuumi, Akali, Gwen, things like that. But then you notice Katarina performs the best. Some of these have been removed, so not all of them have data, but all the ones that are in the game definitely do have data. But Fishbones, good on the ones we talked about, Ashe, Kaisa, things like that. And you just get a really big view of what's possible. So what this helped me the most with is maybe with Suspicious Trenchcoat, because a lot of people realized that the Caitlyn build was decently viable without needing to watch any sort of YouTube video, because that's where most people first heard about it. But a lot of people were playing this already in their games before that video even came out, and the reason why they found out about it is because they were looking at the stats and saw some people were trying it. So that's when using the stats is a very good idea. It's pretty much just when you're trying to look for some really deep interactions and trying to make the most of whatever artifact you get in your game. But at the same time, don't get fooled by data. So for example, for the Indomitable, you see that it has a lot of first places, but not a lot of everything else. And that's because they give it out during Crystal Gambit. So we already did the stat check for without Crystal Gambit. So this is pretty much like fake data, you know? I mean, it's real data, but it's like fake results, right? Or biased results. But hopefully this video helped you out. You can check out this entire list on bunnymuffins.lol over at artifacts on the top here. And literally, I use this too because I forget sometimes which users are like some of the best ones for each one of these. So pretty much if you ever start the game with Artifact Anvil, click on artifacts here to see some common users, or go to teamfight.lol, items, and filter by artifacts, and then sort by average placement and see which ones you get, and probably just pick the best ones here. So that's gonna be it from me today though. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all next time.